Alleluia. Om Mani Padme. Om. Allah.
Welcome. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Kayleen White, and Kayleen is a pagan. Kayleen, thanks for coming back in again.
Welcome.
Paganism. What's the main thrust of paganism?
The easiest way to consider that is to consider what are called three centres of paganism. Mm-hmm. There's earth-focused, self-focused, and deity-focused. Mm-hmm. So the people who are earth-focused, the issue that's most of significance to them is caring about the planet, making sure that the planet is revered properly, doing things like having compost heaps, which I've got actually 2 of. People who are self-focused tend to look at the instruction to be all that you can be. So have as much engagement with life and living in the physical as you can. Mm-hmm. And those who are deity-focused tend to focus on the deities such as Tyr, Isis, the goddess, or the goddess and her consort, I should say, sometimes called the Lady and the Lord. And the issue that's important for them is revering or worshipping the deity or tradition of deities that they follow.
Well, going just back over those 3, because they encompass individually a huge amount. Yeah. The earth-focused people, would you expect to find them in environmental movements? Is that
yes,
where their power is?
Yes, their interest is in making sure that we look after this planet, not just from the point of view that it makes sense, but also from the point of view that it's a sacred duty to care for the planet. Mm-hmm. The closest concept that would possibly help people to understand that is the concept of Gaia, that the whole planet is a living organism. Mm-hmm. So it's not quite the same as what most pagans who are earth-focused believes, but the main thing is that the earth is significant and must be cared for.
Where would they have got their, where are they linked back into? Where would they have got their direction from? Has that go right back to the Druids, or what does it do?
Yeah, pagans, if you go back 2 or 3 millennia, pagans were living on the earth, and it was important to be living in harmony with the earth so that you would have enough food to live, you would have the resources that you needed to clothe and shelter your family and your tribe. Mm-hmm. If you didn't live in harmony with the earth, then, well, you wound up with things such as Easter Island, where an advanced civilization disappeared. Yes,
exactly. In fact, as you say, that many of the first peoples were clearly pagans, earth pagans in that context. Are there any rituals which would distinguish earth pagans from other pagan groups? Is there something that they do specifically?
Not so much the rituals, but more the action involved making sure that composting our food, recycling, avoiding excessive consumption. People don't have to have 35 computers or multiple phones, for example. So it's really probably being focused on living a lifestyle that treads lightly upon the earth.
Okay. And that certainly fits strongly into environmental, and as you say, to some extent in the whole Gaia principle. Self-focused paganism.
The line that's probably best known out of the Wiccan Rede is, and it harm none, do as you will. But there's another line in there which is important to these people, which is, all acts of love and pleasure are sacred to me, which is being spoken by the goddess as part of this poem. The idea here is that for a pagan, or particularly a Wiccan, the earth is the cloak that the goddess puts on in order that we may know the goddess. Whereas perhaps the Christian view is more that the God is the potter who forms the earth and then puts it aside.
Yes.
So it's separate to deity. Whereas we believe that the physical world is an expression of deity, and living our life to the best of our ability is how we can best get to know deity and become connected to deity and establish that relationship with deity. So people who are self-focused believe in being all that you can be, and enjoying and acknowledging and appreciating aspects of life, such as sharing a feast with people after a ritual, or having a healthy sex life, and making sure that you deal with any personal problems to the best of your ability.
So that's sort of peace-driven process, isn't it? We're sort of trying to cooperate together.
Yeah.
Just on that issue of love and sex, how is that distinguished? Because they're two big subjects in their own right.
They are indeed. The pagan view is that sex is a normal, healthy part of life, and it should be enjoyed as a pleasure. Because of the adjuration to do no harm, it should always be consensual. So if anything's not, for example, rape, that's not just a crime and an act of violence to us, it's also an act of sacrilege.
Yeah.
So sex is inherently and naturally good. If sex is also combined with love, in the sense of romantic love, then you've got basically a double benefit. So love is something to enjoy, sex is something to enjoy. You've got both of them there. Great.
So far, it seems that both of those, earth-based and self-based, it's a basis of it is sacredness. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes.
Okay, then we get to the last of those, the deity
focus. And with that group of people, the emphasis there is on the sacred as a distinct element. So, for example, having a shrine in your house for whatever deity you follow. I don't have a specific shrine for the deities that I'm particularly connected to, but I honour them, for example, by lighting candles and by trying to live my life in line with the principles that they enshrine.
Okay, so it sounds as though you have a little bit of an attachment to all three, but
absolutely.
What we'll do is we'll go to a break and then we'll unravel that. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity, and we're speaking with Kayleen White, and Kayleen's a pagan. As I was saying before the break, there's those three styles, if you like. You seem to be a bit attached to each one of them. Are they intermixed? How does, like the self aspect, how does that manifest itself in the other types?
I guess probably the easiest way to explain it is that something that's important to me is being able to care and be of service to other people. When I'm looking after the planet Earth, then I'm contributing to the planet being left in a condition where future generations can enjoy it. So, for example, my day job is as a civil engineer, and I design wastewater treatment plants. So I'm reducing pollution. In terms of caring, being the best at all that I can myself, if I'm a better human being, then I can interact with other people more effectively. And in the course of being a better human being and manifesting what I want to be, that involves, for me, inherently caring and looking after other people in whatever way I can.
Right.
In terms of the deity focus, one of my main patron deities is the Northern European god Tyr, also known by many people by the Saxon name Tu, and basically he's the god who Tuesday's named after. Tyr has a few attributes. The one that is most significant to me is basically social justice, good functioning of the community, and that drives a lot of my involvement in social activism, writing letters to politicians. So there's a fair bit of overlap between all three.
And that would be the case for most people who would claim paganism, wouldn't you think? There would be some that are focused?
A lot would. It's such a broad range.
Is it? Yes.
You'll find a lot of people who are focused on one or the other. So, for example, a lot of modern Wicca traces back to Gerald Gardner in England in the 50s and to some extent the 60s. His focus and a lot of their focus was on, to some extent, hedonism, living a lifestyle which is focused on pleasure.
Yes.
Gerald was a naturist, so his version of Wicca also includes naturism or nudity. That's not common to everybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And if you go back further, if you're a pagan, say 3,000 years ago in Northern Europe and it's the middle of winter, you don't really want to strip off to celebrate. So
right.
there's a fairly wide range.
Yes.
Other people find the issue of deity of a major focus. So they may, for example, focus on having altars for the deities that they follow in their house.
So you'd have to be very careful in describing someone just blankly as a pagan, because it's like saying someone's a Christian, but they could be many shades of Christianity.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, with prayer, prayer is mixed up, but you do pray, don't you?
Effectively, yes. Yeah.
But it sort of fits into other parts, though. How does prayer fit in?
A lot of pagans and witches and Wiccans in particular believe in directing the non-physical energy behind the world by using spells, not just rituals, but also spells. So that may involve, for example, making a talisman for protection. I've got little pyramid-based tetrahedrons that I make for world peace and as well as for psychic protection. It also involves, for example, a spoken, what would be considered a prayer or a poem, for example. And as an example of that, one of the groups that I was involved in was looking for a way to commemorate and do something about the first anniversary of the 9/11 events.
Okay.
And, it wasn't the first, it was about the 5th. And we had a discussion about conflict, and out of that we identified 4 major elements, and as a result we came up with a brief, well, we call it a spell, but it's basically can be viewed as a prayer or a poem which is aiming to promote peace and harmony in the world.
Now we'll actually get you to read that poem, but we'll do it in the final segment because time is not going all that well for us. But so, if you were to address your patron deity and pray, cast a small spell, what would it sound like?
Well, as an example, I may be reading the newspaper and notice something that I thought, no, that's not quite the way it should be. So I might say something like, Tyr, I ask you to guide Mr. Abbott towards greater understanding and compassion towards asylum seekers. So mote it be.
Okay.
And that's it.
So, well, that's a prayer like anybody else, really.
Yeah.
It's always like Shakespeare always got it right, and a rose by any other name.
Yes.
I wish I'd said that. It's pretty brilliant, really.
It was.
Is there any sort of collective, like people turn up in a church and they pray together, or they turn up in a temple and they pray together? Is there a process for that with the pagan group?
Yeah, people tend to organise themselves into groups. So a lot of pagans tend to make contact initially through online. We've adopted the internet very enthusiastically. A lot of people make contact then through social gatherings in pubs, which are called Pagans in the Pub.
Contact. Pagans in the Pub.
Yep.
Time's out. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching Harmony and Diversity. We're speaking to Kayleen White, and Kayleen's a pagan. Earlier on, Kayleen, you mentioned about a group of pagans internationally coming together to find some way of commemorating one of the 9/11 anniversaries. Now, I think the themes of that were hope, peace, love, and prosperity, and they were referred to as spells, which you just explained. It is inclusive of what would be described by many as prayer. Love, the one on love, is very telling. I just wondered, would you read that for us, please?
Sure. May love like water pour forth, filling my heart and soul, flowing out over all the earth and making all things whole. Love as deep as the ocean, clear as the mountain lakes, crowning all other emotion, the thirst of humanity slakes. Love enters and heals the aching heart and washes away its pain, thus clearing the way for a better start to reach out and love others again. Fill me, O love, like a cup to the top. Fill the world as well like a sea, that I may know love from the world without stop, and all the world know love from me.
Yes, that is beautiful. Thanks very much, Kayleen. It's those last four lines really, and this program, Harmony and Diversity. One of the things which emerges from it is the perspective of love, entertained by people of all different sorts of persuasions. But those particular last lines encompass it. Now, how does that fit? Now, they were put together by a group of pagans. So, how does that concept of love fit in to the whole pagan picture?
Basically, caring for the planet, love for the planet, for those who are earth-focused, is a sacred duty. Those who are focused on the self, love of the self is a necessary prerequisite for love. So you can't have an effective love for another human being in terms of, say, an intimate form of love, and it's harder to have an effective love for humanity in general in terms of agape type love, unless you are first comfortable and able to appreciate yourself. So for a pagan, being prepared to fully engage with yourself, your flaws, your hopes, and be all that you can be and address the problems that you have is a really key thing, because it then opens up the door so that you can then do whatever it is that you want to do, whether it's relate with other people through service to others or relate to your deities and establish a good, healthy relationship with them, because love of deity is important to those who are deity focused. But again, you have to have a good self-appreciation and be healthy yourself before you can have a healthy relationship with the deity.
Okay. Now, just talking about deity, now your principal patron is Tia. I was going to use Chus, which is the other one, is it? Tia, okay. Now, and this applies to all pagans who have deity. A Christian, for example, who's got deity has got the Bible, and they look it up, and they know from their reading of what God says or what Jesus says. From the deity perspective, how do you get to that power?
Okay, a lot of it is things like meditation. So taking time to still yourself so that you can listen within, and that's how I become more aware of what Tia wants me to do. I don't hear voices or anything spectacular, but it's more of an inner knowing.
Yes.
It feels right, and you just feel, it's a little bit like your conscience that I should be taking action on this particular issue, for example. Mm-hmm. So for a lot of pagans, it's basically that being in a place where it can be quiet and be focused on the deity. So for example, going to a natural type of environment where you get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, then it may be easier to listen to your gods there.
Mm. So it's really that meditative component is once again the component of all of the major religions.
Yep.
So paganism sounds as though it's going pretty close to being a religion. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely would. Yeah. There's increasing recognition of paganism as a religion. We still have a few problems along the way in terms of being treated respectfully.
Yes.
But we certainly are making good progress there.
That's an interesting point. Respectfully, do you find that the pagan outlook is always respected?
No. There's a lot of confusion. For example, a lot of people assume that if you're a Wiccan or a paganism, then you're into Satanism, which is not at all the case. Satan is connected with Christianity. We don't actually have the equivalent of that sort of negative influence.
No.
And in fact, when Pagan Ireland was converted to Christianity, they had to pinch a word from another language so that they could have something to refer to as sin. And in a lot of pagan groups, people who also are interested in Satanism will often find themselves getting kicked out. But there's that sort of confusion and error.
Yes, it's quite a major confusion at that as well. So it would seem that your deity connection is driven from your innate awareness of what is good and what is right and what is love. Would that be
that'd be true?
A fair description. Yes, that's. I'd appreciate it if we just could read the last 4 lines of Love Calling.
Fill me, O love, like a cup to the top. Fill the world as well like a sea, that I may know love from the world without stop, and all the world know love from me.
Thanks, Kayleen.
You're welcome.
That's our time is up, and thank you so much for an insightful look inside of paganism.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next week. Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allah.